Hey, good morning. Yes, it is. It is Friday, the end of the week. A little hoarse from being in the hayfield all day yesterday. So, Wednesday was probably a blessing for most of you, with me forgetting to upload the video. And then as Claude and I talked about it, I figured out what happened is we lost power Wednesday morning early. And I had all my shipping done and all that stuff. And I thought that I'd hit upload. It it was sitting up there as a draft, but ended up all worked out. You guys got a reprieve on Wednesday, and now here we are. You had to double up yesterday, right? Hopefully, you guys are just watching this at your own convenience, you know. But I thought today we would talk about getting information that sometimes is skewed or isn't the right information. This ought to be good, right? Stay tuned. All right, welcome back. If you didn't already know it, my name is Eric, and this is the weekday, Monday through Friday. Today is Friday. It's the end of the week for many of you. For us workaholics, it's just another freaking day. So, misinformation. And when I talk about misinformation, is sometimes the other person doesn't realize that they're giving you incorrect information. And does it make it right or wrong? But for example, I mean, what profession can you be 50% right most of the time? The weather. The weather with haying and stuff this year has been skewed. We started off last week, going into the weekend, we were supposed to have clear skies right through till July 6th. So my son and I and Claude knocked a shitload of hay down. And didn't it rain every day for a couple hours in the morning? Just enough to wet it so you had to flip it again. So we've been fighting for every bale that we've gotten so far in between raindrops. And, like last night, we were trying to finish up the back 40 on the farm, the home farm. And we got it all raked up by noon and by 11. And told Claude, I said, we'll go back around 1 and it should be good and dry. I said that one section I raked up was almost dry anyways. What I should have done, I should have gone back with the baler half an hour later and started. And why is that? Well, because there were 3 meadows and 2 were small ones and one's a big one. So I started on one of the small ones, got that done, jumped over on the big one. I got 5 times around it and torrential downpour. Just like, really? And we ended up hopping in Claude's buggy, his side-by-side, his Yamaha, and coming out. And that was around after 2. The weatherman again had said no rain till after 4 p.m. He must be crazy, this weatherman. I mean, it's a 50-50 shot. Stick your head out the window and look for clouds. And then do your forecast. You got all this AI technology. You got all this radar that you can look at. And you can't make up a decision on what the weather's going to play out. See, now on Wednesday, it was supposed to rain by noon, and it never rained at all until like through 2 or 3 o'clock in the morning. But that's what I mean by you take and you're playing your time, your day, or your week based on what someone is giving you for information. And what do they say? Live by the sword, die by the sword. Sometimes you just have to make up your own mind and decide how you're going to do it. And one thing it's taught me this time is don't drop a shitload of hay down. Do smaller pieces, get it done, wrapped up, and knock it out. What we can do in a couple hours. Instead of, see that, yesterday we should have been able to bail everything all up in about 3 hours. And we only got an hour maybe. And it come down. Well, Claude was thinking that the hay was no good because I started wrapping wet bales, or started baling up wet bales. And he said, it's just going to be junk. And I said, well, we'll see. So I'm going to wrap these. And he said, well, whatever. So I speared one of those bales, the wet bales, that I just put up because with it being damp, it didn't dry enough. I took it with me out through because we ended up breaking the belt, one of the belts on the baler. So we had to, I told Claude, I said, Uncle, let's take it out and we'll go find something else to do. So I speared one of those bales on the way out, and you should have seen the cows. They see I had a bale on the spear and they come running. Once I got inside the gate, it's like a whole mob attack. So I dropped that bale and I wanted to see what they'd think about it. And they were fighting for it. I told Claudia, I said, that tells you right there how good that bale is. Even with it wet, if we wrap these tomorrow, which is today, we're going to have some good bales. And if we can get the baler fixed today, this morning, I'll do the rest of them and we'll wrap them all. Because cows don't lie. Now, this has also happened to me when talking about other people, right? And I've had friends of mine tell me, oh, stay away from Joe Blow because he's trouble. It's all he is trouble, and he'll suck you dry, yada, yada, yada. And the thing is, what I've learned a long time ago, because now I'm old, is you never go by what somebody else tells you. You don't know what is taking place between them and your friend, or the dynamics of it, right? And I've had friends that would get pissed at me for talking to a person that they consider to be their enemy. And you have to be your own man or your own woman. And I don't judge people by what other people tell me. I leave it up to that individual to tell me how bad they are. And most often the case, there's a history between the person that give you the information about the other person, right? So if you go into it skewed, you probably would never talk to that person. And you could be missing out with having one of your best friends. Now, is it possible to be friends with arch enemies that are friends? Yeah. A lot of people would say no, because then this other friend wouldn't even talk to you. Well, that's pretty petty if you're going to do that. And if you're going to be petty, do I really want you for a friend? All I ask for from anyone is just straight up honesty. Be yourself and live and let live. I'm not going to tell you how to run your life, nor are you going to tell me how to run my life. And the same thing with my friends. My friends aren't going to tell me how to run my life. They can try. But in the end, you have to be responsible and pick for yourself, right? So that can give you a skewed look on somebody. And I've always said, that a stranger is just a friend that I've yet to meet. And I've told you before, is that I value relationships. and I nurture relationships that are good and healthy for both parties, right? I'm not going to be in a relationship of where it's only beneficial one direction. It doesn't work. It's got to be a win-win on both sides. That's how business is. You got to have a win-win. And if you have a friend that's henpecking other people's lives, kind of says something about them. And what I've found in the past is you get somebody that will sit there and feed you a bunch of crapola about somebody else. They're the same person that they'll go to that person, and if you dare say anything, agreeing or disagreeing or what have you, that person is going to take that information and run to the other person they just put down and now start putting me down with the information that I've given them by saying what my point of view is based on their skewed take, right? So if you have one of those friends, just be conscious that we have customers like this. That a customer will come in and berate another shop, how terrible they are. And if you dare say anything, which is not allowed in my shop, you don't say anything about other customers or other shops, good or bad. You just say nada. Good chances are they're running to the other shop next week and they're running us down about what we did or charged, or this or that. So you need to keep that in mind when it comes to the information you're taking in. Where is the source? Is the source a viable source? Or is it like the weatherman that just flips a quarter in the morning and tells you what he thinks is going to happen for the day? Makes sense? And then the other thing that you got to look at, like with YouTube, YouTube has been a great venue, but also not so great, right? You can get good quality information by watching some videos, and you can get some terrible information by watching some of these videos. We've stressed early on in this channel of how important it is to have a set of steps, right? And compression is always your first one. Not replacing the carburetor, not, just put a new plug in it. It's not, you have to have some kind of a set system in place, right? And I always tell you, you got to start with compression. And if we don't have compression, then if it's got overhead valves, check the valves. If it doesn't have overhead valves, then you're done. Two strokes, almost all of them don't have overhead valves. So if you're not getting a good compression, if the machine is sat for a long period of time, I've gotten lucky in the past of shooting some PV blaster into the spark plug hole and letting it sit for 2 or 3 days, pull it over a couple of times between, in that 2 or 3 days, just to lubricate, because sometimes what happens is the rings will seat against the walls and stuff, where they'll seat tight up against the piston, and they get a little bit of rust on them. So by doing that, once in a while you get a good one that will redo itself. The rings will find its elasticity and break free, and now you've got compression. All right, so you got compression, or you don't have compression, you go to the valves on a 4-stroke, and the valves are out of adjustment, and you adjust the valves using a feeler gauge and the information supplied by whatever manufacturer of that engine states it should be, right? If that takes care of your compression, great. If it doesn't, that's it. A little PV if you want, if it's been sitting for years. But if we have compression, we go to spark. And then from spark, we go to fuel. and then from fuel, we go to air. Those are the four things that you should be doing. And you shouldn't be checking the gas first. And why do I say that? Well, because if you dump the old gas out and put fresh gas in before you do a compression check, and the compression isn't there for it to run, haven't you just wasted that gas and the time it took you to dump it and refill it? That's why I say you have to have a certain order as you go through it. And I've seen a lot of these YouTube videos are not teaching that. They're showing a saw, and 3/4 of the way through the video, they decide to do a compression check. Now, a lot of these videos are edited, so you're going to see that the compression is great on it. Or if they go through 3/4 of the way and the compression is bad, and they're honest about their editing, why did you waste that 3/4 of an hour on something that does not have compression? So you have to be careful when you're watching the YouTube videos of people. It's easy to spot the ones that do hands-on and are actually fixing stuff compared to the ones that are actually just rehearsing on a script of what a script says to do. And you just have to be careful. But I've even had other mechanics, and don't get me wrong, I'm not saying I'm a full-fledged mechanic, not even close. I can do quite a bit of stuff, but I don't consider myself to be an expert at it. Claude's been doing it for 50 plus years, 40 plus years, and that's how he made his living. That's a mechanic. But what I've had other mechanics tell me, that if you use carb cleaner or starter fluid and it fires up on that, there's no need for a compression check because we know it'll run. No, you don't. Because a lot of times, low compression engines that are borderline or just below will fire up on carb clean or starter fluid, but there isn't enough compression there to pull the fuel. So until you physically pull that plug out and put a compression tester in there, you don't know if you have compression issues. Simply giving it a shot of carb cleaner in the air breather, or worse yet, don't use starter fluid, use carb cleaner on all gas engines, and it fires up. They will fire up if they have low compression. The problem is with two strokes, if you don't have enough compression, it can't pull the fuel, right? On your four strokes, a lot of them have, fuel pumps pushing the fuel, but in the end, if you don't have the compression and you've done the carb cleaner in the air breather and it started up and you got it in your head that means that it's got good compression, you're going to go to SparkNext, fuel, air, and still wonder why on its own it won't start. So then you say, well, it's got to be the carburetor. The carburetor's not doing its job. So you either take the carburetor off and rebuild it, clean it all up, or you go on eBay or Amazon and order a brand new aftermarket one from the Chinese, put it on, and it still doesn't run. See, at that point, you're starting to become a parts replacer instead of, doing a good diagnostic on that machine. But that's what I mean about skewed information. It's not always, I don't think when people tell me it's in malice, it's just, that's what they believe, or what they think. So I'm going to start wrapping this up. So, whether it be the weatherman, a stranger that friends hate, that they have a history, or a YouTube video trying to tell you how to do something, and they're not doing it the correct way, can lead to having a skewed outlook coming into it. Now, if you clear your mind and you sit there and you say, okay, in my diagnostic stages, I will always do compression first, fire second, fuel third, and air fourth. Those are the four things you have to remember. And from that point, you can make a good diagnostic of what's going on with that engine. If you jump a step, you're wasting time. If you jump from good compression to the air, which just basically is air filter, you're leaving out a lot of steps where it could simply be just water in the gas. So if you take and you do a compression check and you do fire, so you've got fire going to that plug, and you go to fuel, which I shown you on numerous videos and tell you that we dump the old fuel because I don't trust customers to tell me correct information. And that could be a gas can that they mixed up 2 years ago that they're still milking. PRI-G is a good mix to put into gas to stabilize it and help burn it. But you shouldn't be running even year-old gas. You want to stay fresh because if you get the ethanol, which a lot of the units coming through today are based on running on ethanol, they're not based on running on water. And what most of these ethanol lovers won't tell you is that ethanol will attract moisture and condensation. Next thing you know, that gas can is starting to settle out, and you'll get the water on the bottom, then the ethanol, and then the gas. And you can't simply take a riding lawnmower and shake the whole unit trying to shake it all back up again. And if you don't shut the fuel off and let it drain dry, then you've got all that water sitting in the carburetor that you're going to have to drain out, right? So on that note, you guys have a great Friday and a great weekend. We'll probably catch you here bright and early tomorrow morning. It says it's supposed to be clear out all day today, so I'm going to try to get the belt fixed on the one baler. We took a bearing out on the pickup head on the big balers, so I'm going to try to get the small one that we do wrap bales with and get everything finished up by noon today, 1 o'clock, and go from there. So, see you in the next video. Thanks so much for watching.